Hello and welcome to the Athletic NBA Show. It's Wednesday, and I'm Dave Dufour, and that means it's Nerder, she wrote. Joining me as they do each and every week, Seth Partnow and Mo Keel. What's up, guys? The season is here. We had opening night last night. We got Wembanyama tonight. Full slate of games. Are you guys excited or what?
I'm very excited. I'm overwhelmed with just the number of games, which is normal. But now it's just like there are so many games I want to watch, Dave. Like so many different teams, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to just watch some more games tomorrow morning. Like it's just gonna be that simple because I'm gonna be locked in, especially into Wembanyama.
The only game I'm looking at the schedule right now. Okay. The only game that at a quick glance, that is an automatic I can skip that one is Atlanta and Charlotte. And it's not, I mean, honestly, I kind of want to see Atlanta. But I don't care to see Charlotte. So that's not going to be on my list. I mean, even like Sacramento, Utah, that's going to be a good game. Obviously, we got Wemby and the Mavericks. It's like Wembanyama versus Luka Doncic.
I just want to push back on the Atlanta Charlotte one. I mean, LaMelo Ball healthy. He's always fun to watch. Let's see what Brandon Miller does. Like, I'm kind of into that. Like, it's just, the
Houston, Orlando.
It's gonna be hard to divide time. People trying to hang out with me.
Mo Keel Bowl. This is the Mo Keel Bowl. That game, like two teams that are fascinating right now. I mean, we don't know what Houston's going to be. We know how awful they were last year. And then Orlando has some of the most exciting young guys in the league.
I have a question, and I'm going to start, Seth. I want your answer first. How many games do we go until Dylan Brooks gets ejected again? For a potential low blow.
Oh, boy. I think we make it to December.
Oh, I'm taking the under. Dave, what are you doing?
I will say this. I don't think Orlando has the star power at this point to get Dylan Brooks to kind of act up. So I don't expect him to do.
They have Mo Wagner.
Wait a minute. Indiana Pacers, fair. Daniel Tice has the more star power? Like, what are we talking about?
Listen, I think Daniel Tice, there's that World Cup carryover. So that's a good point, man. They do have Franz Wagner. Maybe
Mo
we
Wagner.
do.
If he hurts Franz, I'm flying to Orlando and take it, or the game and use it. Wherever he is, I'm coming.
It's in Orlando. But yeah, to your point, Mo, all of these games, and normally, the league pass nights where you have 10 or 11 games, these are rough. And Mo, you and we've been through a lot of daily ding nights after, these Wednesday slates where it's like 10 or 11 games. Yeah, pour one out for the daily ding. And usually it's like, okay, well, we could skip this. We can skip this. We don't need this. But all of these teams are now pretty compelling. And I don't know, is that just that the general level of talent has gotten so high in the league that there are just no bad players anymore, and so every team kind of has some good guys? Or is it that the talent has been distributed better throughout the league? I'm not sure which. I know that obviously the league is more talented than it's ever been. The 15th man, on every single roster now would probably be like the 8th or 9th man 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, we've gotten to that point. There are no bums, or at least there are relatively few bums. There's still a couple. But also it just seems like there are fewer teams that have an overwhelming amount of talent. Like parity is sort of here.
This is something that's been happening for a while, I think, with the NBA. Like, I think the past 2 seasons, it's felt like there have been more and more interesting teams to watch. Even the quote unquote bad teams have had stuff that you want to go see and see what's going on and what they're doing. So, I mean, I would say over the years, we've seen it where there are fewer games where you're like, I could just skip that and never think about it.
Off the top of my head, there's one team in the league where I'm not like, oh, that guy's interesting. And that's Washington. I think everyone else.
So I think Jordan Poole is going to be fascinating this year.
I mean, we know that player type is not my cup of tea. Honestly, the player who is most likely to be compelling on them is Bilal Coulibaly. Like that's a he could be interesting. That I mean, he definitely has the profile of one of Seth's guys. But you think about it, like okay, Portland might be the worst team in the league this year, but Scoot's going to be interesting to watch.
Right.
And okay, the Pistons might still be bad, but they have Cade. They've got Asar Thompson, who I mean, both Thompson twins are just electric. So at least at the start of the year, like there's something compelling about everybody. And that's often the case where it's everyone's undefeated and hope springs eternal. But just looking at the interesting players around the league, like the second least interesting team to watch, at least at the start of the season, might be Memphis. If you think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Steven Adams news is
Oh,
kind of a huge bummer for Memphis, and obviously no Ja Morant for the first 25 games. But I still think that there's some stuff there. Like Desmond Bane is likely to get more reps. I mean, he's going to be, I'm assuming, the primary ball handler often for them on offense. So the Desmond Bane All-Star push, I'm there for that. That's one of my guys.
It's low key a big year for Jaren Jackson. Also, he won Defensive Player of the Year last year. I think. It, I can't remember a player who has gotten like whose stock has dropped more kind of from international play than him. He struggled in the World Cup, and he struggled a little bit in the playoffs last year. So this is a big season for Jaren Jackson, a big first couple months of the season with Morant out.
I mean, more importantly, because he's gonna have to play center. Like that's just they're so thin up front. And that was before losing Steven Jackson. Brandon Clark's going to be out all year with the Achilles, or at least not be ready to play till maybe April. I think that's one of those things. Like I'm with you, Seth. This is a huge year for him in all of that. But Dave, like, let's just get to it, man. We're all watching San Antonio. We haven't watched San Antonio for the past 3 years, and now it's time to watch the San Antonio Spurs again.
That's right. Wemby is tonight. Seth came up with that in our little pre-show. I like it. I think that this is we don't get this very often in the NBA. This is kind of like, remember Zion? Remember that guy when he debuted, and it was actually
against the Spurs, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think
against
so.
The
yeah,
Spurs.
it was against the Spurs, and it's been since then that we really felt this huge buzz, and I would even argue this is beyond that. I mean, of course.
I mean, we were all in Vegas where I think they played the third game. The Spurs, for his opening game, they played the third game of the day, and by halftime of the first game, the gym was packed and buzzing.
Yeah, it's I don't know. This is just something different, and obviously we've all watched a lot of Wemby's preseason stuff. What are you guys expecting out of him? First game, first week, first month here in the season, because he already has, to my eyes, improved every single game so far in the preseason.
I think it's actually going to look a little bit like that first summer league game, where like the talent, the impact, especially defensively, is going to be obvious. I think that the sort of the speed and physicality of the game, even moving from preseason to regular season, I think that'll probably impact him more on the offensive end. I frankly don't expect him to shoot super well tonight. He probably might have a couple turnovers, but it's going to be one of those nights where he's up to stuff, and you can see the building blocks of what everyone has seen in him, even if he might not have, he might put up like a 5 of 15 or something like that.
I mean, Seth is the no fun part of this podcast crew, with all of that stuff. Seth, we need more excitement and more juice.
I'm very excited.
No,
it's going to be a great 5 of 15.
Jeez. No, I just think, and this is kind of my experience watching Wemby every night. It's all right. What's the next amazing thing he's going to do that I didn't know was possible? Like, I mean, is he going to dig from half court? And I'm not kidding. We've seen him do it from the 3-point line. He's just going to dig from half court and steal the ball. Like, there's all sorts of stuff with him. I feel like it's just really kind of amazing sort of things. I am curious what his nerves are. And I think being at home in San Antonio, I think there's going to be a little extra juice. And, I think there's going to be a strong spurt to start out. And then let's see how he kind of maintains when the energy sort of settles in. And I think that's going to be the stuff that we're going to watch for in that. But I'm just going to throw this one out here because this is going to be a wild and reckless take here. I think Wembanyama is going to be the first rookie to win Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm on that train. I'm on that train as well, Mo.
I hope
really do.
people are watching this on YouTube because I hope you guys saw Seth's reaction. If not, rewind and just watch Seth.
Yeah, I am right there with you. I think his block numbers are going to be staggering.
I went from one eyebrow to none, so that's how hot that take was.
I mean, if you think about how awful that Spurs defense was last year, they're going to be better this year because their guys are going to play together more. They're also playing pretty big. I mean, Jeremy Sohan is going to be the starting point guard at least to start the season. That defense is going to be improved, and with Wemby as like the weak side help guy, man, how many games is he going to block 5 shots?
It's not even it's not even the counting stats, right? It's
right.
When he shows just in the middle of the paint and all that, like watching how everybody has to kind of avoid those limbs to make the pass through him, it opens up opportunities for other guys. Like it's a whole different deal. I think the counting stats are gonna be there, Dave. I think he's gonna walk into 2 or 3 blocks a night. Yeah. Just put his hand up, and by accident, he's going to get some, and he's going to block some of these dudes shooting threes and whatnot. So there's going to be the highlights behind that. But it's really the other smaller stuff that I'm kind of interested in. There's a clip from from preseason where somebody was driving. I forget who. I'll try to find it and put it on Twitter. He just showed on the driving lane, and really all he did was put his arms out, and it wasn't anything spectacular. But it forced the offensive player to have to readjust when he throws a pass to the weak side, to kick it out to the weak side. And that hesitation and that adjustment allowed Sohan to jump in front, pick off the pass, and they had a fast break. I'm pretty sure Wemby even got a dunk out of that. But that kind of stuff, just the presence there is so big for their defense.
And I don't it will show up even more subtly than that, I think, Mo. Like there will be plays where they get turnovers. But just the fact that like, oh wow, look how big that is. Just slowing the offense down. Anything you can do to, make a guy pump fake and then reverse the ball. Anything that disrupts the offensive rhythm, their timing, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm surprised by this. Like he has a potential to be an upper tier disruptive switch defender day one. Not necessarily because he's going to stay in front of everybody, but just like, okay, I could go buy him, but then what?
I mean, Jalen Williams knows all about that in Oklahoma City. I did a one mo thing on his defensive range last week. It's just that pace behind it, and just think about the number of shots that are not going to be taken because Wemby's right there.
I mean, look, we watched the Warriors last week. He had those guys in hell. I mean, Andrew Wiggins for sure had nightmares about that afterwards. I mean, he blocked a Klay Thompson 3, and when Klay caught the ball, Wemby was inside the free throw line. I mean, this is just uncharted territory. So between altering shots, getting guys to take quick shots and pull up short, yeah,
I think the minister of no fun is about.
Yeah, no, I agree with all this, and there's no effing way he's winning rookie defensive player of the
year. Listen, if he's in the mix for defensive player of the year, he's gonna win rookie of the year. Obviously, if he's at that
plus
level.
Plus 1,300 on BetMGM.
How many wins do the Spurs have to get for Wemby to get an MVP, like top 5 vote?
Oh, no, I mean? Now
if they're 500,
upper 30s. If
That's
they get
it?
If they get in the upper 30s, he will get MVP votes.
Yeah, that ain't happening though. Now we've gone a little too far.
I don't think it'll happen, but I'm saying that's what it would take.
So far, they've played 0 games, Mo. So anything is possible. And I'm at the point with Wemby where I just will believe it, right? I choose to believe. I want to believe this guy is something we've never seen before. I mean, his warm-up videos are things we haven't seen before. So I don't know, Mo. I mean, Does upper 30s in wins? Like if they win 38 games, Seth, that's what you think that he'll get?
He will get MVP votes, and I think rightly so.
Yeah, I just think that's.
I don't think they will.
I mean, I also think the MVP class is going to be very high. I think we're going to have a pretty exceptional year. I think the top 5 for MVP is going to be pretty competitive to even make the number 5. But yeah, sure.
Can I'll give it to him.
Yeah.
Can I get our MVP predictions?
Oh, okay.
Mine's boring, but sure.
Is it Jokic?
Okay,
Giannis?
mine's not as boring.
Okay.
Giannis is mine. That's where I'm going. Where are you going, Mo?
Jason Tatum.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying it's Nikola Jokic. I just think that
wow, we're so boring.
I know.
All of us way out on limbs here.
We all suck. We picked like the top 3 in the betting.
Yeah, well, Steph Curry. Look, Steph Curry would be my dark horse, right? But like the Warriors have some, the Warriors have some big problems. I think that they've got to sort out first. Not big problems, but they've got some stuff they've got to sort out. But I think Steph. I mean, you know, and we'll get to this in a minute, but I think Steph, if they're top 3, Steph is going to be in the mix there because, you know, it's just how it works. But yeah, that's a boring 4, guys.
We've
Tatum at least would be a new guy, a little bit of new blood.
I just think Boston's going to have the best defense. I think they're going to be honest, I think they're going to run through the East. I think that he's going to be I think they're going to have the best record in the NBA. Think he's going to be their best player. I think it's pretty. Going to be pretty obvious as the season goes.
He certainly has the narrative, wind behind his sails.
I also think people are tired of voting for the same guys over and over again.
Yeah. And hey, and then people start they'll hand in their votes, and on the margin they'll type USA exclamation mark. And
oh damn, I didn't like that. There, Seth. Come on now.
Okay, so we had our first 2 NBA regular season games for the 2023-24 season last night. So we got to do this thing where we overreact, guys. Any takeaways or just initial feelings watching the top 4 in the West? Because that's who we got to see. We got to see the Nuggets play the Lakers, and we got to see the Warriors play the Suns. That's the consensus top 4 contenders to come out of the West. So just, I think like a little bit of free form. How are you feeling, Seth?
My single biggest takeaway, I have a small takeaway, which is the Lakers have some rotation fat to trim in terms of just figuring out who plays when, and they probably need one more guard if we're being like really nitpicky. I don't think I need to see a Suns Warriors playoff series because I think, the expression is styles make fights. And I kind of think that these 2 teams will bring out the sort of aesthetically worst in each other. I mean, that was a pretty ragged game last night, I thought. And I think that would be a pretty ragged series if they played in the playoffs. So that's my single biggest takeaway from night 1. And also the Nuggets are freaking good.
Oh yeah. We'll get to that.
I love this day 1 of our podcast on the NBA season, and Seth and I are already polar opposites. Give me 7 games of Warriors Suns.
Just hopefully, I just need the Warriors to shoot better.
The game will be first game of the season. Here's the thing about the Warriors. Klay starts the season slow every year. We'll check in January and see how he's doing. Like him struggling to shoot, no shocker. No Draymond Green for the Warriors, and we know how important he is defensively. Wiggins was terrible in this game yesterday. Maybe he'll shake it off. Maybe this is the Wiggins we're going to get this season from the Warriors. I thought, and they're still trying to figure out how to make this work with Chris Paul and Steph and all of that stuff. I still think Chris did pretty well for them. I know he struggled in the first half. I know we're focusing on his 0 for 6 from 3, but I think the fact he took 6 threes says a lot. And it's something that we talked about last week.
We worried that his hesitancy to shoot.
And there were a couple of times last night where I was like, yo, you got to shoot that one. But I think there's a adjustment period for them. I think for them, it's going to be a slow climb up and they'll play better. I think for the Suns, no Beal. I think they were kind of trying to figure out what they were going to do kind of on the fly and things like that. I thought their bench guys, I thought Yuto Watanabe was awesome. I thought Josh Okogie was the hero of the game for the Suns, but I also felt like the drama between these two teams, man, you could feel rivalry building. And Seth, let's get the tension and the animosity and things like that. I know aesthetically it wasn't great, but I think that's more attributed to day one of the NBA season versus this actually being the what we would see if they had a playoff series.
Well, here's what I mean by this in terms of the style. Like the Suns are going to default to sort of a very one-on-one ISO heavy no matter what, and the Warriors switching is going to play into that. Whereas, the downfall of the Warriors at many times is kind of being too loosey-goosey. They're unstructured, but there's a pattern, but sometimes they get out of that pattern and get a little wild. And I think that the Suns playing in that equally unstructured way will just refract on them, and I think would lead to some pretty sloppy games. I think independently, these two teams could have compelling playoff series with a number of other opponents. I just think the matchup of the two of them is less than the sum of the parts.
Yeah,
from a viewing standpoint.
You guys worry about KD at all? I mean, it just seems like he can't create the same amount of separation. And this is a continuing trend from last season when he came back, from that injury. I expected him, and I don't know what we expect out of these guys, to be honest with you. As they get older, we should see regression, but sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. But KD, it just doesn't seem like he's getting the same separation off the dribble. He's already taking, Seth, and correct me if I'm wrong here, some of the toughest shots in the league when you consider as far as like average distance from the defender, and he hits them at what should be an unsustainable rate, but he hits them. So am I overthinking this? I know it's one game and we're not going to play this, but this is more of a trend to me.
He's one of the two toughest players in the league to really. Him and Steph are basically like, are they getting good shots? Right. Is that a good shot? I don't know, because like when they don't go in, it looks like he's not creating separation, blah, blah, blah. When they're going in, which for, the entirety of his career they have, I mean, shot the crap out of the ball last year. It's like, he's just dropping jumpers in your face and there's nothing you can do about it. And so it's, I don't want to, if we go a month and he's his effective field goal percentage is down in the low 50s or something like that, then maybe, but I'm not going to be worried about him taking 22 tough shots in night one, because he's going to take 15 tough shots a night, because he's taking 20 tough shots a night every day of the week for the last, 15 years.
Yeah. My concern with him is he took a lot of bumps in this game one already. Like, there were a lot of times where he would go down and I go like, damn, is KD hurt? Like I kept seeing him hit the ground, and I'm looking around. I go like, that's actually concerning for me, just because we've seen what we've seen from his health standpoint the past few years. That I didn't like the shots he took, but like as Seth was saying, this is also what KD's offense is, and all of that stuff. But I'm more concerned about him health wise, and just the movement on the floor. Dave, was the stuff where I was seeing him kind of, he took a hard shot off of a Kevon Looney screen. The next play down, he goes up for a shot. He actually kicked Klay Thompson, but then he fell on his butt. And it's just every time I kept looking, he was falling. And I thought there was a little bit more of like some stuff where I'm like, is he going to be able to survive this for 82 games? Because they need him to play a lot of minutes.
And that's related to the thing I think we would be looking at is if he's not getting to the line at all. His first career, he's been up around 6.5, 7 free throws a game. Last night he took 5. If he's down in the 4 or 5 per game range this year with the amount he's going to play and have the ball, that's, I think, an indication where he's not creating the kinds of advantages he needs to. And he's a little bit like DeMar DeRozan, and like his advantages look different than other players. In that way, I mean, that's a very kind comparison to DeMar, obviously, but you know what I'm saying, right? Where it's like he gets fouled on some tough shots because he's going to make it if you don't crowd him too much. So I think that would be the other thing that I would be paying attention to, is if he's not creating enough of that separation, of that that panic in defenders' mind that he's getting to the line 6, 7, 8 times a night.
The thing I would say is this is also maybe the transition of him being your number one guy and transitioning to a number 2 spot, because goddamn Devin Booker looked
He
great
was
yesterday.
awesome.
I mean, he was
awesome.
something else. Like, you
Yeah.
know, he really picked up the slack. The thing that stood out to me was his passing down the stretch, which was making just plays after plays for the Suns over and over again. And it's like, that's your number one guy. And that's a guy maybe one of us should have talked about as a potential MVP there.
I have him third on my preseason.
Oh, look at you. Oh,
what he wound up with 8 assists. And I actually think, I mean, he is, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Bradley Beal sort of being the point guard. Devin Booker is the point guard of this team. I mean, he was last year. He has been for a couple years now. That's the point guard going forward for them. And he also, by the way, Josh Okogie's their best defender, but Devin Booker is their second best defender. Yep. You know, KD is not the same KD that he was 4 or 5 years ago. Devin Booker puts in the work on that end too. So, I mean, I think that for the MVP conversation, like that's actually going to be a big part of it too, is that he actually plays defense.
And I think this ties it back a little bit to not to go back to Wemby, but I think that Mo, you mentioned kind of the nerves, and like Wemby wants to be great. Like, you know, you can see it in his warmups and stuff like that. And I think that there's something we've seen, like a lot of players talk about, you know, wanting to do these things, but I think we've seen just the growth of Devin Booker's game over the years, from adding the playmaking, from going from, I think he fairly maligned as a little bit empty calorie scorer on some pretty disastrous teams, to someone who became a better playmaker, a quicker decision maker, and now in the last couple of years, adding that defensive responsibility. And I think that that's really indicative of that desire not just to be like good, but to be great. And I think that's been it's really nice to see. And a player who's really raised himself, in my estimation, a tremendous amount over the time we've been doing the show even.
Right. The other concern for me though with the Suns, the one concern really is Nurkic. He was awesome on the offensive end. I thought he was great. He did everything you want and everything we kind of expect from a healthy Nurkic.
Good matchup for him.
He was getting blown by defensively. I mean, Chris Paul blew by him 3 or 4 times where it was like, yo, like that's the playoff problem. Like there are certain problems you go like, it's a regular season problem, whatever, we'll figure that out, whatnot. That's a playoff problem because teams are going to go at him over and over again. And I just watched it, and there were times where Curry blew right by him easily and just missed the shot. Like there are going to be time. That's the concern I have for them on the defensive end. Can what he brings on the offensive end outweigh that? We'll see. But I think that's the thing to watch for through the course of the season with the Suns, because it showed its face in this game. And if you're just going to sit there and talk about how great he was on offense, you got to look at what it was on defense. He made a couple key blocks, but overall, when he was on the perimeter, he was barbecue chicken.
And it's like I was saying, it is a good matchup for him to do well offensively, because he's never been a particularly good finisher for a player of his size, and especially since the injuries. And you know, the Warriors, especially without Draymond, don't have a lot of interior presence, so he was able to use his bulk. Does that work the same against Denver?
That's a good question. Speaking of Denver, the Lakers, you know, I saw a local Lakers show was talking about the game against the Nuggets as a must win. And people were kind of hitting this like, come on. Now, hold on. I want to make the argument here. I like the idea that games matter. Okay. I know I'm on the, I'm kind of like in the minority there, but I don't like the 1 of 82 mindset, especially when it's against the team that just swept you out of the conference finals. And that, you know, and the Lakers were talking about how they heard the trash talk all summer. So I actually appreciate coming in and saying, hey, you know what? This first game against the best team in the West is a must win, because theoretically, like, it should feel like a must win. Now, if you're the Lakers, you're not as good as the Nuggets, right? Like, I mean, the Nuggets are in a tier by themselves in the West, in my opinion. Is there anything positive you guys would take away from the Lakers' loss in opening night. I don't want to hammer them yet, but I want to say, what were the positives for the Lakers to you guys? Because they did lose a must-win game.
I want to push back on the must-win stuff.
It's
though,
fun.
before we get to that.
It's
No,
fun.
I get it. And we're making it so like we're building the stakes for the game and whatnot and everything that goes into it. Like, I think we get we get too excited. These games matter, but for different reasons than
performance, not result.
Right. And that's what matters. And that's what the whole regular season matters about for certain teams. Other teams, the results matter because they need to make the playoffs, right? Like, there's that. But the performance of it and things like that, I don't think I think when we go in and we start saying this is a must win. Well, okay, so is the game against Phoenix that they play tomorrow, is that also a must win? Because it's another measuring stick game. So every game's a must win. They're all fucking must wins. That's going to be my only F-bomb today. I'm trying to be better. They're all must wins. And I think that's kind of the deal with that. But it's more how they looked. And when you say, Dave, like, what were some of the positives? I don't have much.
That's my worry.
That's my concern. Is I didn't come away from this game. Everybody's talking about them as being potential contenders. And yes, they're playing the best team in the NBA. I'm walking away going like, man, I just did my power rankings and I had them pretty high. I'm like, I think I might have overrated them to begin with.
I think there is a tough curve there in that. I mean, I think I think really it's less about the Lakers' shortcomings and more about Denver. Like Denver, especially that run they put together kind of in the back half of the fourth quarter. It's just like, all right, we know how to do this. And it was just like execution layup, execution open three, execution KCP open mid-range. It was just, I thought that was like it was very much we are professional.
Today's one more thing.
We know how to play together. No, and that was just, I mean, that's a team that is just there. And the Lakers aren't there yet, and it's game one, and they have time to get there. And so saying that a team that is basically like right back at the level they finished, and they finished by winning the championship, they're not there on day one. That's credit to Denver for being at that level right out of the gate, rather than a shortcoming, I think, for the Lakers. If we are going to be negative on the Lakers, it's the goose egg of Anthony Davis in the second half.
I mean, but the funny thing for me is, like, we've seen this again with the AD against Jokic over and over again. And Laker fans are furious with the AD's thing. Also, it just goes back to Jokic is a tough matchup for him and for everybody else in the NBA. Like, this is Jokic wearing guys down because AD was phenomenal in the first half.
I thought he was phenomenal offensively, but defensively, there's just nothing you can do against Jokic.
Well, like, nobody can, right?
Every single time he wanted to score on Anthony Davis, he just did. Every single time. I mean, he's unstoppable offensively.
I've got a question. Is there an element of Jokic that's almost, because of how well he uses his size, that's almost Shaq-like, in that you need a certain amount of like big body, otherwise he's gonna walk you down and do whatever he wants? And that's not like, okay, maybe you don't want to close games that way, but I think that feeding Anthony Davis to him for 30 minutes a game is just going to put you in that situation where he's just so big, and that bigness combined with his skill is just it's you guys who are playing up at 5. They just don't. It's just not going to work.
I mean, like, here's the thing that frustrates me with the Lakers, and really other teams should take a note of this too. When the Lakers beat Denver in the bubble, and we could talk about all this stuff, different team, all that, whatever stuff we want to go into, AD wasn't guarding him,
right?
Wasn't his primary defender. They had a series of other bigs. That's the game plan, to go at Jokic. And that might not stop Jokic. You really just got to hope you could just somewhat slow him down. But that's what it is. That's why I look at all these teams and I'm like, you guys don't have enough bigs. You simply don't have enough bigs. Dwight Howard's out there floating around. We know all that stuff, but that's just a body you need. and that allows AD to come over. AD coming over to double onto Jokic, entirely different game for the Lakers, different game plan and whatnot, but changes things so much for them. And yeah, Jokic is good enough to pick apart the doubles, but you can make things harder for them. But it's that you just feed him Jokic one-on-one. He doesn't have the size for it. I love, Seth, what you said about it kind of being Shaq-like, in that sense. And I think that's the thing is there's just not enough teams loaded up on bigs. And I'm talking about all the teams they might face in the West. Who's really that big in the Western Conference?
The Warriors are going to guard him with Kevon Looney,
Draymond
Green, maybe Kuminga. You know what I mean?
Like, I mean, the Lakers thought Anthony Davis and Rui
Christian
Hachimura,
Wood and Rui
and Christian Wood. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
the Nuggets look as good as they did in the finals, I thought, in the opening game. The thing that surprised me for the Nuggets, we've all been sort of worried about their bench, and obviously this is one game. I liked some of their bench units. I thought they ran a lineup with Zeke Naji, Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, and I think it was Murray and Reggie Jackson. That was in the second quarter. It's a lot of athleticism, which, one of the things that we've hit on some of the other contenders is like Milwaukee, for instance. A lack of athleticism off the bench is trouble. You're never going to have the same amount of skill, for your eighth and ninth guy, but they can make up for some stuff through activity and defense. And man, Denver might have a nice bench.
Christian Brown looks like he got stronger since last season.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it definitely was in the weight room for sure.
Yeah, like there's, a couple. He kind of like went into 80s and LeBron's chest on a couple finishes. Didn't finish the one against LeBron, I don't think, but got the offensive rebound if I remember correctly. But yeah, no, I think that they, and Brown, like not being a rookie, I would like him being a competent role player at minimum this year shouldn't be a surprise, given how much he contributed even as a rookie last year.
I mean, the more impressive thing, Dave, too, was when the bench came in. They had my favorite defensive possession in the second quarter. I think it was. The Lakers were doing a great job moving the ball, finding different pockets to pass and stuff, and all the Nuggets kept doing. And this was mainly their bench on the floor. Rotate. Everybody kept covering for the guys. This and that, and it ended with a Peyton Watson block. And I thought, like that was a play where I was like, wow, that's impressive because that's their bench unit, mostly young guys, all making kind of plays. Zeke Naji was on the floor, Brown was on the floor, all that stuff. But it also just makes you realize all that panic we had over Bruce Brown leaving might have been a bit overstated with all that. But again, also, it is game one. It is young guys.
Yeah.
Which means we get a lot of up and downs with them, a lot of ebb and flows. So let's see how it kind of continues on. But it is, if you're a Nuggets fan, and after watching how poor the bench was last season, this is a bit refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I think showing up on opening night that's a good sign. The lights are pretty bright, especially when you're playing the Lakers. So I thought they did pretty well. This feels like a pretty good place to wrap up. You guys got anything else you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, I just think just kind of looking at the Lakers, I just think they're short two pieces. I think they're short bigs, and I think they're short a guard. I think I like a big guard.
They're just combo guard.
Yeah, they just feel small, really, and playing LeBron 29 minutes, and Darvin Ham had told our guy, Jovan Buha, like this might be a trend for the regular season. That's not necessarily a good thing. They need him to play a lot more than that because they don't have the bodies to really make up for that. And these 5-minute stretches and whatnot, I think are going to be very difficult to maintain for him.
I want to end the show just it's I think at this point I've shown that I can be critical when need be. I want to give a shout out to sort of my former coworkers with Giannis signing the extension in Milwaukee. Just an absolutely tremendous offseason for them coming to fruition. Somehow a team that was sort of, maybe it seemed like they were out of assets and coming to a close of a championship window, somehow getting better and extending that window. It's really just tremendous work by that front office. So I just wanted to get that in and say that, and It's part of the reason why I'm thinking, Giannis MVP, Nuggets, Bucks finals is sort of what I'm expecting from this season.
Wow. Well, that's going to do it for this week, folks. Thank you guys for listening. For Seth Partnow and Mo Keel, I'm Dave DeFore, and this has been Nerder, She Wrote.